Well, hi, my name's Elaine Glover and I'm the Bishop of the Cross Denominational Mission. And a couple of weeks ago, we went to Jerusalem for a 2-week holiday. We weren't really sure what to expect, to be honest, because, you know, you hear all these things in the media about Gaza and Hamas, and that's all you ever hear, all about that. And, you know, you just assume that that's going on in Israel everywhere all the time. But we went. The Lord sent us, I believe, because my husband took some time off of work, which was quite normal, really. But he said he'd like to go as well. And we stayed at, where was it? We stayed at St. George's Cathedral in the guest house. So we weren't really sure what to expect. And I just assumed that we'd be having prayer meetings, praise, Bible studies, and these kind of things. Anyway, when we landed, we had to get a taxi. And before then, I was really concerned, would we be getting kidnapped? Because, you know, all you're hearing all the time is Hamas, Gaza, IDF, bombs, explosions, and this kind of thing. So I wasn't really sure. And the guy in the taxi said he was a Muslim, and I thought, oh dear. Not because I don't like Muslims, but I was a bit frightened. But then I said to him, you know, it doesn't matter, because where we live, you know, we do live amongst Muslims and Sikhs, Baha'i, all sorts of people. And sorry, I got an itchy nose. And so anyway, I was thinking, I hope we're going to get to this Jerusalem. But we got to Jerusalem and slept quite a long time. And then we went for a walk down Nablus Road, which is quite Arabic. I don't know whether it's Christians and Muslims, because I know that not all Arabs are Muslims, but a lot of them are. But I just thought to myself, you know, while I'm here, I don't want to get involved with politics and who's right and who's wrong. So we just kept saying, hello, how are you? And smiling at people. They smiled back and they seemed really happy. And we went to an Arabic Muslim, I don't know whether it was Muslim, but it was Arabic, hotel. I assumed it was Muslim, but I didn't really know. And they were really, really kind, and they were lovely and very helpful. And we bought some things from the local shops, and off we went back again. And, you know, I was really pleased that people were smiling and we were talking to them. There weren't that many people about, to be honest, like I've been used to up and down the Nablus Road, because normally it was chock-a-block with people and going to the Garden Tomb, or, you know, shopping going into the Damascus Gate. So anyway, the next day we went to the Garden Tomb, and not many people there. I was doing a video and got told off for sitting in the passageway of the Garden Tomb, the actual place where they believe that Yeshua was placed, and then he rose again on the third day. But yeah, we were doing a lot of this sort of, hello, how are you, being nice, you know, thank you for what you do. And I said thank you for what you do to the IDF, and that at home we've got vigils for the hostages and blah blah blah. But I think some of them thought I was a nutcase, because, you know, they do have conscription when they're of an age, and they all have to go into the IDF. I don't know about Muslims. I don't know how that carries on. I don't know, but I know that the Jewish people, Jewish young people, have to go whether they like it or not. And so it's a way of life. Anyway, I think it was the following day, I think it was a Tuesday, we went on a light train up into, where is it, into Zion something or other, to meet our friend Ruth Fazell. And Ruth Fazell is an acquired, or not acquired, but she's a very, very wonderful worship leader, very talented, and God has given her a fantastic gift of playing the violin, and she's done all sorts of music and created various concertos or whatever you call them. I'm not very up with these things. But we met her and it was really nice to talk to her and see what she was doing and asking her about where she was and has she seen any of the problems that is going on in Gaza. But I know that she plays the violin outside of Gaza to bring peace and to bring healing and hope. And it was really nice to actually see Ruth there, but it was very, very quiet, very, very, very quiet. And there was on one side, there was all these pictures of the hostages on the walls. And what I couldn't understand is that the King of Kings, which is a church up the hill from just outside the old city, and they had a 24/7 prayer tower there, and praying for all the peace and reconciliation. And in 2011, I prayed, I think it was 2 or 3 nights consecutively, at night, through the night, praying for the peace of Jerusalem and the healing of the nations and for peace between the Arabs and the Jews. And it was amazing, and I really felt the presence of God. But between 12 and 3, every night there was always this sense of evil. But by 3 o'clock it went, and we were really praying, and sometimes I actually fell asleep because it was tiring, but I really enjoyed it. But this was the thing, and we went to Christchurch where we got married. Me and Adrian were married in Christchurch by Canon Andrew White, the Vicar of Baghdad, and we went back there. But that was so quiet too, there was hardly anybody there. And apparently they're really struggling because of money, and they don't do, because we wanted to have some food there, only doing bed and breakfast, but there were very few places really to have food. So that was out of luck. So we did go for a meal in a Arabic restaurant, one of the few that were open. That was really nice. But I couldn't believe how quiet everywhere was so quiet. Anyway, we tried to go swimming, and we rang up the the King David hotel, and for us to go into a swimming would be £200. That was ridiculous. So anyway, we went to another hotel just across from where we were to go into a swimming pool, the Leonardo Hotel. And that cost 70 quid, and £35 each, but it was so hot, 40 degrees, and that we went in, and it must have been meant to be because we met this Jewish family, and the lady said that she was in tears to think that we'd gone there for a holiday because she thought that people hated the Jewish people in England. And why would we want to go to Israel for a holiday? And I'm thinking, this is crazy. Because in Dorset there are many Christians who they really love the Jewish people, and they really love Israel, and they're very supportive of the Jewish people. And I remember, because I'm partly Jewish, I'm from the Zanker family, from my great-great-grandma was married to John Taylor, and I think it was her father or her grandfather in 1735 came probably from Prussia or somewhere like that, or was staying somewhere, and they were thrown out. I think in Spanish, I don't know quite what happened, but they became sojourners. They were looking for work, and they all ended up in Bilston in Leicester or Leicestershire, and there were quite many of them, many in the family. And I discovered that on my father's side there were the name Smith, and their relative went up to Anne Smith, who married into the Zanker family. So I have, both sides of my family have Zankers, and many of them were killed in the Holocaust. And in fact, I've just discovered that Irma Zanker was a special needs teacher who escorted the children twice. One in 43, I think it was, and one was in 38. I'm not quite sure of the dates. It could have been 39 rather than 43. I think it was 39. Now I've lost the train of thought. So I am Jewish, and that's it, I know. We wanted to support the Jewish people in Leicester because many of them were the elderly, and the people, some of the council wanted to detwin the Tanya seaside place in Israel with Bournemouth. And that's ridiculous, because what effect's that going to cause? You know, it's just these people trying to dig in the knife. And so we went there, and all they were saying was, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Shame on you! Shame on you! Is what they were shouting. And this really stirred me up, because I'm thinking, what on earth are they trying to do? Because, you know, it's just ridiculous. In Bournemouth, it's just a seaside town. They do have a number of retired Jews, and I don't know why they were doing it for, because the impact would just making old people fearful. And what they've done is, actually, they're not representing, they are not representing the reality of what's happening in Israel, because all they're doing is scaring off all the people to go on holiday there. So they've lost a tremendous amount of tourism, and there's hardly any English people going. There are numbers of people that are from Philippines or Africa, but very few Westerners, probably a few Germans, but the majority of people from the West don't go to Jerusalem anymore. And all they're doing is causing Arabs to lose their businesses, and Jews, because they used to have a lot of restaurants, tourism, take people out, go on journeys. And now this Jewish lady was in tears, thinking we didn't, you know, they wanted to go and live in Israel to get out of the way of these stupid pro-Palestinians. But all they're doing is destroying the Arabs. It's not affecting the Jews as much as the Arab people who use tourism for a job. And I was getting really annoyed about this, because you could clearly see, you know, that a lot of these taxi drivers weren't getting proper jobs and all sorts of things. So anyway, that was really on my mind. We went to Magen David Adom, is it Magen David Adom? Which is the ambulance service, and we went into this room, and it had a fantastic panorama view of a part of the back end of Jerusalem. It was beautiful, and they were showing us, you know, what Magen David Adom were about, and they will treat anybody, whether it's Hamas, IDF, whether it's Muslim, whether it's Jewish, whether it's Christian, Hare Krishna or whatever. They were faith didn't come into it. They were there to treat everybody and anybody. And they were telling me how on the 7th they played this audio of a young man, must be 18, 19, 20. I think he was at Supernova, I'm not quite sure. And he was saying, Mum, Dad, I love you, I appreciate you. Dad, I really love you. I love you, Mum. And the father was thinking, what on earth's going on? This is ridiculous. Because, I mean, obviously, you wouldn't normally get your son ringing up and just saying that. But then he heard, and then he was dead. And he was killed by Hamas. And then there was another little boy of 6 with his sister in a cupboard. And their mother and father had been killed, and they were hiding in this cupboard. And they rang up Magen David Adom and told them what had happened. And, you know, it made you want to cry, because they wouldn't come out the cupboard until they heard a member of their family's voice. We had a look at the different vans. We had a look at, you know, how the calls come in and where they go out, and it was amazing. And they do some fantastic work, and they don't get paid. There's obviously people that do get paid by Magen David Adom, but they're not paid by the government, and they should do for the amount of work that they do. Then what did we do? We went back to the Garden Tomb one day as well, and all of a sudden there was these really loud sirens, and it was Yemen had struck one of their bombs, or whatever you call them. They didn't hit Jerusalem. I think they were destroyed by that big dome. But it was made you realise what it was like, because it could have been something or it could have been nothing. And we were in the chapel, which is the shelter and garden tomb for if you got bombs. And they were all singing, because that you live, I can face tomorrow. Because you live, all fear is gone. And I was singing it very loudly, but sadly, me, I've lived in Belfast and I've been to Baghdad with Canon Andrew White, and I've cleaned the clinic and done different things and all sorts. And, it could either be something or nothing, but it did frighten me a bit. We went to an Arab Christian shop, and they got some lovely things, and they were saying that they don't get many tourists, and a lot of the reasons why these prayer groups are stopped is because there's no tourism. And I didn't have a clue. One of the things I did, I listened to Shiloh Ben Hod on YouTube, and he said how I felt, really, because when it was the 7th of October 23, I was absolutely horrified. The fact that Hamas and the Gazan people had been working for the Jewish people there in the kibbutz, and they sent all the surveillance to Hamas. And both of Hamas and Gaza, in fact many Gazans are Hamas, aren't they? But they came into the kibbutz, they slit open a woman's tummy, took the baby out, and they both died. They smashed babies' heads on the wall and put them into ovens. And that's what we'd been hearing, and that's what I'd been seeing from Hamas webcam. It was terrible. And I had absolutely no empathy or sympathy for Gazan people. And the lies that Hamas were telling, and, the media deceit and lies and propaganda. Oh, it was awful. And for a long time, I just couldn't even be bothered to even think about Arabs. And if you hear the Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, it's quite frightening, actually. And it just makes me cross. If I knew before I went on holiday that this place was very pro-Gazan and very pro-Palestinian, I don't know whether I'd have gone. A friend of mine, or a couple of friends of mine, told me this before I went to Israel. And, so, oh, well, Elaine, you'll be all right, because I'm all outspoken and I don't stand any nonsense. But you see, God had another plan. Because the Arabs were very nice, and they would always smile. I mean, I don't know what happened exactly. I don't know anything. All I wanted to do was share the love of Christ. I'd have liked to have gone to Damascus Gate and preached the gospel, but probably I don't know what would have happened. I could have been shot dead or arrested, because I know the Jews don't like to be trying to lead people to Christ. But the people there, the manager was wonderful. Obviously he got his opinions. I didn't know what they were. I didn't want to know. But he was doing his job. He didn't interfere. He didn't press his opinions. And he was always very helpful, as were the other staff. They could have been members for Hamas for all I know. I didn't know. But I didn't want to know. I just wanted to share the love of Christ. And when I first got there, all I wanted to do was sing. It was amazing. Then after a while, I just got a bit depressed, really, because when I saw the reality of what these pro-Palestinian people were doing was horrendous. So anyway, let me just carry on quickly. So we saw a pastor who was an Arabic pastor from the old city, and I bought some of these Jesus and Disciples from the post office in Broadstone, because Lynn knits lots of things and she sells them for her charity. So he came to see us in the St. George's Guest House, and I gave him these toys, and he said, would you like to go and see these Gazan people who were ill, had cancer, or they couldn't go back to their home because obviously they hadn't got a home. And I thought, yes, I think that's a great idea. So they said, we could go and see the gardens, and I only thought about one or two, but I didn't know there was 50 of them. I was thinking, Lord, what do I get? Do I get apples, oranges, salad? What can I buy? And as I was standing in this Palestinian shop just round the corner from St. George's Guest House, I saw these boxes of chocolates. I thought, yes, that's a better idea. And we only live up there, so we'll be able to carry them. Because I'm not very good at walking. I'm a disability, and it was so hot. So anyway, this is what we did. We got these boxes of chocolates. I did count them. I wasn't quite sure. When I counted them before we left, I had to buy another one because there was only 49, not 50. But we got these boxes of chocolates. I bought 50 holding crosses from the old boy across the road who sold jewellery and icons and various things. And I counted that I'd got over 50 little bottles of shower gel, which I thought I could give to them. I didn't know where we were going. I didn't know anything about that. I knew that the guy that was taking us was a converted Muslim who became a Christian. But he couldn't speak English. And then I was saying, Lord, the day before, Lord, I can't, how are we going to do? Because none of us can speak Arabic, or they can't speak English, and we can't speak Arabic. And they put us in touch with Charlie. No, we went in a taxi with Charlie, who told us that he was a Christian, and he used to go to the King of Kings and everything else like that. And I thought God sent us him so that he could translate. And he's a Christian. Because still in my mind I'm thinking, were we going to get kidnapped? Were we going to get taken to Gaza and all this? So on the Friday, we went off to where they were. I don't know where they were. It was some kind of refuge where they were. They wasn't in a hospital where I thought. Somewhere in the Mount of Olives. I don't know where they were or what it was. I can't remember. And I just went. And I just said, I'm a Christian. You're Muslims. We've come here to share the love of God. And they were so pleased. I was hugging the ladies. They were giving them the chocolates. And if they wanted a holding cross, they could take it. We were told perhaps they may throw it at us because they're Muslims. But they didn't. And this is the thing. And this is where I can see where Shiloh Ben Hard, or Shilla, I don't know how you pronounce your name, but I could see where you were coming from, because before this 7th of October they'd had a conference all about being one, and they were praising God, the Arabs, some of them were from Gaza who became believers, and they were praising God with the Jewish Messianic Jews and Jews of rah rah rah. And it was great. And one of them from Gaza was told something would happen. And you must remember this day, so that's what we did. That's what they did. But Shiloh couldn't speak to these Arabs and everything. He was really upset, and both he and his wife cried for 2 days. And that's exactly how it happened to me. But then God came to me and said, look, I love the Arabs, and I love the Muslims, and I love all people. And I died for everybody. Whatever they've done, and that's so true. And so the whole thing really opened my mind and brought me back again, like Baghdad and going to Northern Ireland, is that people generally just live normal lives and they're not interested in terrorism. They just want to get on with their life. But even so, Jesus Christ died for the terrorists. And every time they smashed a baby's head on the wall, every time they would open a pregnant woman's tummy, every time they set fire to families, Jesus Christ took it on himself to forgive them on the cross. And when they say they're sorry, they will forgive. So it was a wonderful time. It was a challenging time, and so much mixed emotions, but God used what Shiloh Ben Hard said to speak to me. And then it was amazing that I bought these things from the post office, It was amazing because God had already prepared it all before we went. And he kept us safe, and he always has every time I've been to a place where it's very difficult. He's always kept us safe. But this is my thought. One, what you think's going on in Israel is not at all. In Jerusalem, they're ordinary people that want to have an ordinary business, feed the children, send them to school, live an ordinary life. They're not interested. I mean, they might be, but basically they want the tourists back. They want the tourists back, and it's so safe. I would say it's safer in Jerusalem than it is here. And also, it's not everything. Even how people will see England, all it says in the press is riots and Tommy Robinson and riots, but it's not like that at all. Normal people in the countryside and ordinary people with ordinary lives just live ordinary lives, and that's the same in Jerusalem. So please go back to Jerusalem, because they're so upset there aren't any tourists. They're not killing people, they're not kidnapping people, they just want a business. So anyway, God bless you, and God really spoke to me. We need to love all people and to share the love of God. It's for us to share the gospel and God to make the difference. Bye.